Listen, I'm not going to sit here and watch this stuff happen no more. You know what's crazy about the devil? He's going to try to kill you and take you out, whether you fight or not, he's going to do it. And that's what the colonies realize. Listen, if we don't do nothing, we're going to die. If we do something, we're going to die too. We might as well die for the glory and the honor of God. If I'm going to die, it's going to be for something righteous. Be something worth dying for. So many Christians are in bondage, depression. He's not willing to die, not willing to fight. Churches struggle because only 20% of people get up and do the work of God. We are celebrating literally our independence, but it costs so many to get us here. Are we willing to do the same thing? It's not one way for them, another way for us. You know what Declaration of Independence, you know what declaration even means? It's some deep stuff when you realize it means an explicit formal announcement, either oral or written, the act or process of declaring subject to duty, or formal statement by a plan specifying the facts and circumstances constituting his or her cause of action, an unsworn statement of facts that is admissible as evidence. That means say, listen, let me tell you what I'm doing this for. Let me make a declaration today that we will not put up with this no more. And it's the same thing every fine person needs to do in this place. The same thing all of us should begin to walk in and say, listen, I'm signing the Declaration of Independence today in my own life. And I'm declaring today that my family is going to serve God. I'm declaring today that my house will be saved. I'm declaring today that my family will honor God. I'm declaring today the devil is not going to have no more room inside my life. You can write this thing down. I'm going to fight. I'm going to live. I'm going to do whatever I have to do so I can do this thing. These colonies of people literally didn't stand. And they wanted to be liberated. They wanted their independence. They wanted to live free. They understood that the enemy wasn't going to go home at all. And when you have to fight this enemy. The fight is coming whether you like it or not. Colonies understood that. Can I tell you the enemy's coming, so what will you do? The enemy's here, so what will you do today? Will you fight and say enough's enough? Will you stand up and say, listen, I'm going to give my all to God? This should make a fight come inside you. This morning, teenagers, you need to make a stand. You're a teenager, it's time to stop thinking like you're a little kid and you're not anymore. It's time to become a young adult in your life and start fighting. You have no excuse at all. Adults, you need to make a stand. Struggling saints of God, there's some of you that are struggling today, and you're struggling because you're not coming to the Spirit of God in your life. You're struggling because you're not willing to fight, or willing to die, or willing to sacrifice. The outsider, you're here today, it's time for you to make a stand. It's time for you to get up and say, listen, I'm going to fight. The man and woman of God that is fighting God, it's time not to fight God, it's time to fight the devil. And say, I am going to make a stand for the glory and for the honor of God. I'm going to sign my declaration. And when you think about it, it is powerful and it is amazing. Think about all the fireworks stands. Think about all the fireworks stands, except for ours. Ours has phantom. I don't know what that is. But Spirit of 76, freedom fireworks. When you look at Mad Dog, what are we saying? They're all aggressive. TNT, explosion. What are they saying? You look around like, man, all these fire stands like, wow, let's do this thing. All these fire stands like, man, I'm a mad dog. Oh, you're not going to take my, I am TNT. I am freedom. All these things. What are they showing us today? It took a fight to be here. It took a fight to be saved. So they can fight to stay saved. So they're going to fight to say, listen, I'm going to fight for my family. It's going to say a fight to say, listen, I'm going to get off drugs. I'm not going to do this anymore. The Spirit of God will help you. The words of David spring out powerfully here today, and it reads, it is God that ridded me with strength to make my way perfect. It makes my feet like a hind's feet, he says. It sets me upon my high places. He teaches my hands how to war, so the bull steel is broken in my arms. Thou hast also given me the shield of salvation, and the right hand has holding me up, and thy goodness has made me great. It was these, and David said, listen, God teaches me how to war. God gives me courage. God gives me a fight. And think about this as I wind this down to a close. 70 million Christians have died thus far. You know what's crazy about it? In the last 100 years, though, out of those 70 million Christians, okay, 70 million Christians that died since Jesus came to this earth 2,000 years ago to now. Out of that 70 million, 45 million have died in the last 100 years. That's the last 100 years. Isn't that amazing? What does it tell us today? Out of 70 million Christians, okay, since the beginning of Jesus was born, okay, 70 million, out of those 70 million, the last 100 years, out of that 70 million, 45 million of those have been killed in the last 100 years. You know what it shows today? that they killed, 25, 30 million Christians, okay? They killed 25 million Christians the first 1900 years. They killed 25 million Christians the first 1900 years. In the last 100 years, 45 million Christians have been killed. That's after that 70 million. You know what it shows me? The devil's getting crazier. In the last 100 years, 45 million Christians have been killed. More than the whole 1900 years behind them. You know what that's how many days? The devil's like, I know Jesus is coming back. I know the gospel is being spread. He killed more than half just in 100 years than he did in 1900 years. You know what that tells me? Is it creeps on a mission. You know what that tells me? Is that he's warring after our lives. You know what that tells me? Is that he's coming after our homes, coming after your kids. Yes, your kids. You know what that should make you do is get up and fight. It should make you want to stand up and say, ain't not in my home, ain't not in my community, ain't not in my world, it's not under my watch at all, it's not going to happen at all. It should make you get up. It should make you rise up. It should make you say, God, I'm going to live for you for the glory, for the honor of God. If they died physically, how much more you and I? It's wild. John Adams said these words about 4th of July. He says these words in which he wrote to his wife Abigail that his thoughts were about celebrating the 4th of July. This is what he says. He says, "The 4th of July will be the most memorable epoch in the history of America. I am apt to believe that it will be celebrated by succeeding generations as the great anniversary festival of our country. It ought to be commemorated as a day of deliverance by solemn acts of devotion to God Almighty. It ought to be solemnized with pomps and parades and shows and games and sports and guns and bells and bonfires and illuminations from one end of the continent to the other end of the continent forever and forevermore. You would think me transported. You would think that I have too much enthusiasm, but I am not. I am well aware of the toil and the blood and the treasure that will cost us to maintain this declaration and support defend these states. Yet through it all, and all the gloom, I can see the rays of ravishing light and glory. I can see that it is more than worth all the means, and the posterity will triumph in the day of transaction, even although we should rue it, which I trust in God we shall not." He said, let me tell you something. You might think I'm crazy, but our nation should worship God during this day. Our nation should stand up and remember that people died so that we can stand here today. Our nation should shoot guns and have bonfires and have illuminations from one side of the continent to the other side of the continent. And some of you might say, well, that's kind of dumb, or that's kind of rude, that's kind of off. He said, no, because people die so we can be here. We should celebrate that people died. We should celebrate that people were willing to lay down their lives. And you know what, you guys, the same thing, you look at Independence Day for our country, God wants to do Independence Day for our lives spiritually. And I'm saying this to say this, 70 million Christians have died. I'm not downplaying America. 1.5 million Christian people have died for our country. But 70 million you guys have died so we can be here today. 70 million just in the last 2,000 years. 45 million of those have just died in the last 100 years so we can have freedom. And we take for granted that we're in the house of God, and I don't feel like singing that song. He's all off beat and everything. Guitar, can't even hear the guitar. Hello! We forget. What are you here for? What are people looking down and seeing? Our lives are worth everywhere, God. Our families in this. And then I hope today that you say, listen, today I'm making a stand. And I'm signing the Declaration of Independence Day. And I hope today you never look at 4th of July and the same. When you're eating that hamburger, turn it up, say, man, to do this, people had to die. And it brings on a whole different understanding, not only to you, but as people serving God. When you serve God, 7 million people died so I could be here. I can lift my hands to the Lord my God. Somebody brought the gospel to America. Somebody told us about God. Somebody had to die. Somebody had to trust. Somebody had to believe. Today, let's be a people to say, God, from now on, I'm going to give you my all. I'm going to give you my everything. As the band begins to make their way up today, Jesus said these words, Isaiah 61, verse 1. We don't have a CD player today. It says this, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to preach the good tidings to the poor. He has sent me to heal the broken heart, to bring liberty to the captives, and open the prison to those who are bound. To proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord and the day of vengeance of our God. To comfort all those who mourn. To console those who mourn in Zion. To give them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning.